Hey guys, Arm&Gun here. I'm going to do a quick disassembly and reassembly video today of the Hk MR223. This is the A3 version, which is the ambi. However, disassembly is going to be essentially identical to the A1 pattern guns, like the 416, the MR223, the MR556, all that goodness. So anyways, I'm going to start off by dropping the mag and proving the gun clear. So we're good to go there. Can keep her on safe. I've got a Brugger atomic muzzle device on here, so I'll just pop this off. This is you just pop this spring forward here and then rotate this dial back. It's just a self-locking, self-ratcheting thing. Just real quick, the reason for these things, muzzle brakes and compensators create a lot of concussion, and lots of times they send that forwards and sometimes backwards. So if you're training or if you're at the range, it's a lot of noise and a lot of concussion, and it's not very pleasant for people around you. So even sometimes to the shooter, if you're more sensitive to that. So a blast deflector is going to keep all that inside this chamber and chuck it forward. So you're not actually, the reason these aren't illegal in Canada is they don't actually reduce the sound. The sound signature anyways, they just chuck it forward more, and they chuck all that concussion forward so that it's away from the shooter's ear and it's away from anybody that's around the shooter. So just kind of cool. Again, this is the Brugger atomic blast deflector. Here in Canada, this thing's available with Wolverine supplies. Give them a check. Check them out. Anyways, this, we'll talk about this in a bit. No, I already talked about this. Check out my Gun 101 video on this thing if you want to know all about this. But again, I'm going to stick with just this assembly for now for the rest of the video on this. So, all right. So the first part is going to be basically identical to any, AR-15 or M16. You just got these pivot pins, upper and lower separate. Pull out your internals. The difference is mainly going to be, well, there's some differences with the bolt carrier itself, being a piston gun with its own proprietary Hk piston system. But most of the difference is going to be pulling the handguard off, which is super easy, thank you Hk, and then the piston system up here, but I'll get to that last. So, your rear pivot pin, these are retained, so it just stays in there. You can't actually pull it out. Pull the front one out as well. Separate your upper and lower. This just gives you access to, your buffer system, your trigger components, all that kind of stuff. Just gives a quick clean out, wipe out. But because it's a piston gun, that doesn't get very dirty. Most ARs don't get very dirty there anyways, unless you're firing a ton. So next thing, just unlock the action. Just pull your charging handle back a little bit. That's going to bring your bolt carrier group with it. Pull that out. This little guy, just pull out till you get to the slots, lift up, pull this out. This is HK's charging handle. If you're going to clean this thing, the main area to focus on is just inside those lugs in there. Shoot, flashlights. Just want to clean out inside there. And then that's your piston. You can see your piston is sitting right up in here. That's what pushes your carrier system back. It cycles the action after each shot. And otherwise, just kind of clean up the grooves, clean up the channels, make sure everything's riding in there nice and smooth and it's oiled up and good to go. So, set this aside for now. We'll talk about the carrier. So this is a proprietary carrier. There's a few differences with it. It does say Hk MR on it. Got your serrations for your forward assist. You've got a beveled rear. This is kind of, so it's anti-tilt. And then there's some interesting stuff going on with the firing pin safety. There's a safety here that's, it needs the hammer needs to drop properly on it in order to discharge the rifle. So just some extra stuff that Hk cooked up to make the guns that much safer, which is, good for them. Kudos, Hk. The problem is then I don't think that standard bolt carriers run necessarily as well. I haven't tried it out anyways. They could. I'm not sure if they drop right in or not. I don't see any need to swap this out because it's a cool gun. It's an Hk gun. Hk makes high quality stuff as it is. I don't see the need to replace this with some other aftermarket carrier. The way the bolt works here, it's got a little spring, it's spring assisted. That's, I think, just through the firing pin. The nice thing is though, that makes sure that the bolt is properly oriented when you throw this back into the gun. If this was pushed back, it's not going to engage properly and it's going to kind of lock up. So that's preventing you from properly reassembling your gun. So that's a cool little feature that it's just handy to go like that. Being a piston gun, you don't actually need gas rings in the bolt, so those aren't present. That's why this is so easy to actuate. Otherwise you got your single ejector, your single claw extractor, and I'll disassemble this really quickly so you can see the other cool intricacies of this carrier. So it's got the little firing pin, retaining pin here. This thing is retained, which is really nice. Typically you just have a cotter pin, which is easy to just to fall out and lose. So it's nice that's retained. Now to get your your spring out, or your firing pin rather, it's beveled, so you can just force it out, which doesn't take really any effort at all. That's your firing pin. There's your firing pin spring. And now you pull out your cam pin. Nothing really special there. And your bolt. Your bolt is also marked MR. So again, pretty straightforward. You just notice the lack of gas rings. It is made so that you can only put the cam pin in the proper way, which is nice. It doesn't actually fit in the opposite way. That just prevents you from reinstalling your bolt backwards. Getting more standard on all the higher end ARs. It's a common feature. It's nice to see. Pop this back in. And then the trick is with getting the firing pin back in. So we'll toss our spring on first. Get this in here, and then it's not going to just clear this this safety here. So you have to lift the safety up and then pop your firing pin past it, and then make sure it's just sitting in there, just caught, and then you pop your pin through, or fiddle with it as much as you need to get your pin lined up properly to then push it through, because mine's being a little tricky right now. Oh, why are you being difficult? Oh, there we go. Okay, I got it. Good to go now. And then just as a quick check, nope, I screwed it up. Okay. There's a simple check to make sure that you've got it right as well that I'll cover. There we go. Okay, now we're good. And the way to check that you make sure that you've got everything reassembled properly is push your bolt back, and then in this case you have to lift up on this safety, and then push the firing pin in all the way with your finger. You should see it just emerge from the firing pin hole there. You can see it here. Not very well. It is, in fact, there we go. It is in fact coming out. So that way you know you've done it properly and your gun is going to function properly. So set that aside. Now we're going to pop off the handguard, look at the gas system. All you need to do, you can use a socket if this is on really tight. However, mine is relatively loose, so I'm just going to use a flathead. Use a nice wide one, to be careful because you don't want to booger up the bolt here. But again, mine is nice and loose. So you're just going to pull this out, and this is also retained, which is nice. And it just locks through a groove in the barrel nut, which is kind of huge. Oh, okay. Pull it back once you disengage the threads, and again, it's retained. And then just gingerly, to avoid scratching anything, you just put some pressure. This is just pressure fit. It's just friction. Ooh, okay. It gets locked up in here too. It is quite a tight fit. So I'm just gonna grab a rubber mallet and plunk away at this here a little bit to help it release. So there we go. That's all it takes. Separate this, pull this off really nicely, and then we've got our gas system. So this is the piston, and this comes apart in a couple different pieces to make it easier to pull apart. However, I'm trying to remember how I did this last time here, the best way. There we go. So you pull this back, rotate it off to the side a little bit, and it comes right out. So that is your piston extension, essentially. And this is your actual piston. It fits in there really nice and smooth. 100% identical to G36 and 417. I think they're all the same piston. They're all interchangeable as far as I know. That's really about it. This is also the assembly for mounting the folding front sight. Oh, I think I'm pretty much talked out on this, guys. So I'm going to pop the piston back in. This system goes back through here as well. And it's also all cut out so that you know exactly which way to put it back in. And I'm going to leave it there. Thanks, guys. Catch you later.